Hi everyone, this is Sunette here for our live soul hangout, and joining us is Anna. Hi Anna.
Hi Sunette, hi everyone.
And tonight we're going to be walking through the word work and defining, redefining and living this word. And Anna has walked this process of defining, redefining and living the word. And she's joining us here tonight to share her experience, as well as being an example for all of us in relation to what is involved in this process of defining, redefining, and living words. So with Soul, we've walked through a couple of videos in, giving you some practical knowledge and information. But when oftentimes facing the moment of placing knowledge into application, it is quite something different. So Anna, thank you very much for joining us tonight. To also share with so many of the viewers, the practical understanding of what's really involved with this process. So I'd like to start this off with a question to you, Anna. For you, what happened within yourself or your life for you to decide to change your relationship to the word work and also your life experience with the word work?
Yeah, so when I was a child, the way that I came to see and understand work on a very deep level within myself was through seeing adults in my environment. And so this was especially my mother. She was a working class lady at the time. She worked in a retirement home. And she was always tired and she was always miserable. And not just her, but also other adults, especially women, because I grew up around a lot of women. And they would come home and they would be, you could see it in their faces. I remember as a small child that look of exhaustion and like life was being drained out of them. And that really became the foundation of how I saw work, and also the way that they spoke about it. That, well, it's something that you just have to do to get money. There's nothing you can do about it. And they felt very powerless and bitter. And I didn't at all see other sides of work. This was the primary dimension or perspective on work. So when I grew up, I don't want anything to do with that. I couldn't inside myself accept, I couldn't accept that is what my life is going to be like, that I have to do this for the rest of my life until I die, and all of life is drained out of me and then I die. Like, what kind of life is that? I just couldn't. I was so afraid of it. It's almost become like a phobia in me due to the adults that I saw as a child. And so I spent a lot of years avoiding work. And I live in a society where there are actually, or there was at least in the past, opportunities where you can, to some degree, you can avoid work. And I would have like odd jobs and study and basically do anything that I could to not get into that point of having a job and having to stay there, and you look that maybe you'll have this job for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so it was more the relationship with that job for the rest of your life, like something that you're going to have to commit to for the rest of your life, that's going to put you, and with that definition, all the memories of your mother came up inside yourself.
Yeah.
All right, interesting.
Yeah. And
so something must have happened in your life where you went, wait, I need to change this. So can you share that moment?
Yes, so I eventually realized that, well, I have to work to support myself. And it is, I started seeing that it is not as enslaving as I think it is, but I still had all these experiences. So I went into it and I got a job, a solid job, or a job that is not, I know that I'll be leaving in 2 months. And then what started happening is that I became very stressed and I was very unhappy, and I had all these thoughts that I think people can relate to, which is you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my God, another day. And you drag yourself out of bed and you drag yourself to work. And these thoughts always come up of, when, you know, when is the day over? Only 6 more hours. All of these thoughts that, and it just made it worse. The more I had these thoughts about hating my job and not wanting to go, and why do I have to do this? It just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And it culminated in me becoming sick, because what happened was that I had this job for around 3-4 years. And every time I had a holiday, on the first day of the holiday, I would just get sick, really sick, with a fever, and I would just, my body would just collapse. And it happened like four holidays in a row, you know, like Christmas holiday, for example. The first day I just got sick, and then I was sick for like 2 weeks. And then you have to go back to work. So this made me realize that, man, this is not okay. I have to change my relationship with work, with how I perceive it.
Yeah, because I mean, it should actually, in a way, be in reverse. Meaning you're not in reverse, but you know, your holiday should be more just the practical time for you, for your body, for your relationships, for your life. And you know, your work environment, yes, it may be stressful and time consuming and overwhelming at times, but I mean, when your body is going to the extent of at holiday times when you're supposed to relax, it's like, in a way, a dimension that I've seen as well in some people is that when the holiday comes, you're not exposed to that stimuli of stress and overwhelmingness and being on the go and concentrated and focused all the time, and you know, having so many thoughts and emotional experiences that in a way it's like the body collapses, breaks down, becomes sick. But what was fascinating is becoming sick had a similar level of stress and tension and emotional experiences within the person. So it was like the body was kind of trying to adapt to a continuity of stress and tension and worry and anxiety and fear and all of that. So, wow, yeah. And
yeah, so that was, and I think a lot of people experience this, and it's only when they get to that point where they actually become sick and they eventually realize, or someone helps them realize that it is because of stress, that they start looking at changing their relationship with work. For me, it was only a couple of years, fortunately, which is even way too long still, but you know, for some people it takes maybe 10 or 20 years until they get to that point, and it shouldn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've also come across quite a few individuals who, look, they work in a high stress, high intensity working environment, but fascinatingly enough, they have gotten to know their relationship with the time that they're investing within their work, and when they need to step back, take some time and slow down. Where they faced burnout like quite a couple of times. And then what they started doing was realizing, okay, it wasn't so much about the job in itself as much as it was they haven't yet developed a way to handle it in a more calm, stable manner that supports them and their body. So then they started incorporating some daily like exercises, daily hours, that they would just take some time with themselves, slow down, that will allow them to cope and manage with the stress and the tension and, you know, overwhelmingness. And then they would do the holidays as well. So there's been people with interesting ways, but it was for me also more managing it and coping with it rather than finding a solution for it, which if I listen to your words and your process and experience, you've more looked at a more long-term solution for yourself and who you are in relation to the word work. So please do continue. What did you do with the redefining process?
Yeah, I just wanted to share that what I also did wrong in trying to manage it, or that I think we also do, is that I created a polarity between work and being at home, or work and free time. So what I explained before, in that it just got worse and worse and worse, was also because I created this, oh, I just can't wait till I get home, and oh, it's so nice to be at home. And it wasn't really a relaxing time in the sense that you're describing. It was more a polarity, like free to be myself, and in the job I'm a slave. That's basically how I experienced it. Okay. And so the more I experienced that, the worse it got. So that also contributed, that being at home became a positive polarity to the negative polarity that I saw work as.
Yeah, not many people notice that point, in terms of how I've also worked with many people. Sometimes then they're like, you know, when they go have their free time or relaxation time, let's say weekends, you know, and then having to get through the week again, or, you know, holidays and getting through the holidays, that on weekends and holidays when they relax to such an extent, and then, but during the weekends, you know, it was fascinating, or during the holidays, they would be complaining about their work, or about their stress, or about their experiences. So they were also like asking, am I then ever really not working, or not stressing, or not worrying? Because even in their weekends, free time, relaxing time, they were thinking or reacting to their work time. So that made them actually question, you know, who am I? Where am I? Am I actually really relaxing, or letting go, giving some time for myself, my family? Because most of them were actually just complaining, moaning, worrying, stressing, finding more compromising ways on weekends and holidays to kind of wind down and deal with the stress of work, which was in itself creating consequences in relationships, families. So yeah, this is a big thing for sure.
Yeah, and I hated Sundays. First of all, when I came on Friday, I would already start feeling stressed because the weekend was so short. And then on the weekends, you have to do all the things you didn't have time to do during the week. So you have to do laundry and clean the house. And so it wasn't a very nice experience. And then come Sunday, I had this dread, like this doom experience of, oh my God, here we go again. I mean, it's really not very enjoyable.
No.
So I had to change it.
Yeah, meaning, Anna, just what I'm seeing here as well, which is quite interesting, because it's like you're never with yourself, like, or here, or with the people, because in your head you're just constantly thinking about work or home, what has to get done, what must be done. It's like, that must be quite an intense way of life.
Yes. So then I started this redefining process, which was a very long process. It took me maybe 2 years in total to where I am today, maybe 3 years, because there was a lot of layers to go through. All of these various relationships that I had created with work. And so
sorry, and just to get in you there, but because some people might go, oh my goodness, 2 years to redefine a word. No. Here, the redefining process, which is also that what we mentioned in some videos, is when you walk a redefining process, and Anna will share this as well, is that you do have a, let's call it an end goal, but in your journey or process and path to that end goal, you also actually learn and realize and understand and change so much more about yourself. Like one word can open up like 100 different words. You also become exposed to that assist and support you in your process and journey of redefining work. You know, like we sometimes think, okay, it's only going to be one word, which is work, but you actually start redefining so many other more supportive words that eventually lead to redefining the word work, which in the total journey or process for Anna, for example, it was 3 years.
And I mean, Yeah, and also it was so completely, totally worth it because exactly as you said, I got so many gifts, and I came to the words purpose, for example, and the word potential. So many things developed out of that process. So it was, I had to focus on the word work, but it was really also about living, for example. Which is something that is always relevant. So it's not like it just stops and then everything is perfect. So that's also, but in terms of really fundamentally changing this relationship, that's what took so long. So what I started doing is that I started stopping the thoughts. the oh no, I was really disciplined with not allowing myself to participate in these thoughts of not wanting to be at work. So because I saw that was what was, the more I did that, the worse it got.
Okay.
So when I was,
Sorry, Anna, just one more here. So did you notice that it was more your thoughts about work and the emotional experiences that were attached to the thoughts that actually created like a veil inside yourself in your relationship to work, your everyday life experiences and things like that? So it wasn't so much about the work in itself as much as it was the experience that you were creating in your own mind with your own thoughts and emotions.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because when I started then stopping the thoughts, and stopping them was simply when they came up. So I would be at work and the thought would come up, oh no, when will I be going home? And I just said, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to participate in that. I'm here now. This is where I am. And what developed out of that is that I started appreciating people around me at my work. I started experiencing different expressions inside of me of enjoying being there, not because it was work or a job, but simply the activities, whatever it was we were doing. So this is exactly what you're saying, that that was completely veiled. I couldn't enjoy myself. I couldn't expand my relationships with other people because in a way I wasn't really there. I was just doing the motions.
Wow. That's fascinating. Yeah, because I'm just seeing the design here as well as you're speaking, because it's like, you're, as you said, the words, you're there, but you're not there, because inside your mind, you've just got almost like this metal ball. And in that ball is the word work and your definition of it, and all the thoughts and the emotional experiences. So you were kind of almost going through your day like this, like, oh, okay, I'm just going to get through my day type thing. Instead of, and with just stopping the thoughts and the emotions about work, kind of opened your eyes, lifted your chin up and went, oh, there's actually people and things here around me.
Yes.
Okay. That's fascinating.
And then what was very important for me, because of how I have defined work, was to take out this whole, or work with this whole dimension of work being something that is slavery.
Okay.
Which was quite a tricky process, because I do understand that we do live in a system where we have to work, and as such it isn't necessarily something we would do otherwise, right? There is that level of it being something that we have to do, and also that I'm being paid a salary by someone else who in a sense is owning my work. So I had to make peace with that. I had to realize that this polarity between free time and me time, and where I can be myself, and this work time, that wasn't real. That I am equally free or equally myself when I am at this work, even if and this really made the big difference, to realize that even though I am in a system where there's a force or I have to do this, it doesn't mean that I cannot be myself and I cannot express myself.
Yes, no, for sure. I actually, before you said that, I was like, yeah, but you can actually find your way of creating or expressing, whether you are in your free time environment or in your working environment.
Yes.
It's kind of existent in the statement of, what is the words? Everywhere is here. In other words, that, I've also walked, but this is on a different topic, but it does kind of link into this in relation to where we tend to change a lot of who we are based on where we are or with who we are.
Yeah.
But instead, what I then started doing is, yes, looking at my different environments, looking at the different people within it. I mean, obviously, different environments and different people, yes, it does call for different ways of communication and behaving and interacting and things like that. But even within those conditions, I could still manage my freedom of expression, myself, and learn from it and create within it. So I think, Anna, like one of the points that I'm seeing here that you've also realized is that, if we just let our thoughts and our ideas and our perceptions and our emotions about work, the money behind it, the elite behind it, or the system behind it, or, all of that, if we let go of that, and we look at, okay, what can I make of, my work, my environment, the people within it in a way where I'm actually free. So it does actually come to question, are we being enslaved, through work or by money? Or is it more that we're being enslaved by our ideas of work or ideas of having to make money? When if we let those go, as you're sharing here now, you can actually learn and express and experience so much in your working environment.
And what's really interesting is that because this, the complexity of it took me a while to realize, but what actually developed out of it is that I actually became even more empowered, because some might think, who have had the same experience, that, okay, but then you're just bowing down to the system and you're just accepting what it is. So am I just supposed to be happy and just do my job? No, actually, it's completely the contrary. That what started happening is that I started being able to make a difference in the structures that I was in, because now I was there, I was a part of it, I was responsible. It wasn't just something that I did as a slave. I was equally responsible for co-creating these moments of work. And so I started seeing, but where can I make a difference? And so it isn't just accepting, if you're in a bad working condition or bad working situation, seeing that you can be free and express yourself is not the same as then you just have to accept how it is. Then you can actually start expanding and looking at, okay, but how can I make a difference? How can I contribute in a way so that, for example, the systems of enslavement or the bad working conditions can change? Whereas before, in me resisting it and avoiding it and hating it, I was actually accepting the premise even more, because I was just seeing it as, well, I just have to go through the motions and hate it and just do a bare minimum, and then I go home to my life. So that's quite interesting that it had the exact opposite effect.
Yeah, I would though also look at some dimensions where, just to consider also individuals who are in working environments who may not necessarily be able to, for example, have a voice, have an input in terms of changing, let's call it, the policies or an infrastructure, or, the interrelationships in the offices or things like that. But I have also worked with a similar individual in your experience, Anna, and she also, went to work, went home very alone, even though she was sitting in an office with an exceptional amount of people working with her, but she literally knew no one. And she also, similar experience, went through the whole work experience and thinking about money and the future. But for her, what was happening inside her mind that was occupying her was a bit more in the relationship dimension. So she was thinking more about relationships and, money in that in the future. And she was trying to work to build a life in her future. And then, also just getting her mind into, but hey, you are at work, you've got an office full of people. Why not start creating relationships? Because you never know, even, if you start talking to someone who you're working with, start getting to know them, how that relationship could open up something in you, in them. You start getting to know more people, you start networking, you start socializing. And it was interesting because when she started walking this process of actually spending time with her coworkers and getting to know them, the whole relationship and future point just kind of, went out of her mind completely. And it eventually naturally happened. But it's quite similar to this that you're saying as well, Anna. It's like we're spending so much time in our heads that we don't realize what we're missing right here, right now, right in front of us. Even if it is just about creating relationships with the people who's right here next to you.
Yeah. And there may, of course, as you say, be people who cannot, and it's maybe not even be relevant to go in and look at the structures. That's just something that I'm interested in. But I've also looked at that, even if you have, for example, very, physical manual labor job, and, it just is what it is. You can't change it. Even there, you can look at how you are, for example, how you move, how you sit on the chair. You can look at how can I make it more supportive for myself, or how can I do this job that may be very manual, for example, how can I perfect myself in it? How can I be the very best in what I do? And even though the purpose is not necessarily so much for the job, but for oneself. And then also not look at it as bad or a shit job, but then can see, so it's kind of like making peace with where one is at and see the opportunities that are there and start creating opportunities.
Yeah, I like those words, Anna, because it is about, look, this environment where I am in at right now, right here, this is it. And yes, look, we can talk about the consequences of the world system, the money system, and human civilization, and the history within and behind it that, draw out all the lines and say, yes, this is what got me right here, right now. But the question is, what am I going to make of this? Even if you are in the smallest office space. I mean, there was also another example of a person who, same thing, suffered actually to the extent of wanting to commit suicide, depression, really bad, because they're stuck in a little cubicle almost 24/7. And then, but they couldn't get out of it because it was the only place or space that they could get enough money to be able to survive, just to live. And then they slowly but surely started a process of transforming that little space into something just for themselves, just starting to decorate it, starting even to do some exercises physically while they're working, started playing some more music. And from there, they discovered a passion for art, just by making those changes of, we must also not so much think that it's going to be an acceptance of like an absolute acceptance or making peace with the system or the world or the money as is, like, okay, I'm just going to accept everything. No, it's not that. It's just, we have to first and foremost find our potential, our creative expression, ourselves, no matter where we are in this world, however small the cubicle or our space or our environment and our work. Find that point within ourselves that's us and settle in, create it, express it, make it our own, learn from it, walk our own processes. So Anna, thank you very much for this example. It's very, very interesting. It's opening up here.
Sure. So yeah, what else? So I was walking that process, and it was such a relief for me to change this relationship with work, because it's something that I had in my life for a very, very long time. And so I started embracing it and embracing going to work every day. And it just became a completely different experience. And the thoughts did still come up from time to time, but it was much easier for me to go, whoops, nope, I'm not going there. I'm not going to that point. And it actually became so that I was going to work and also being professional in that sense was something that I was very clear within myself. I was very stable and clear because of the new relationship that I had created with work. And then this evolved into being able to then look for, but what is then my passion? What is it then that I want to do? Because instead of just being in this hamster wheel where I didn't have space within me to even look at. Of course, you can dream and have fantasies, but in a realistic sense, look at, okay, but what do I want to do with this? Or what do I want to do? How can I change this job perhaps into something that's more beneficial for me and others? But once I had let go of that, it's like I started moving into a form of abundance within myself, that I had much more to give within me. Instead of always feeling like it was taking life force from me, it suddenly became, what more can I expand? What more can I give? What more can I create within this? And that was very interesting and very surprising to me.
Nice. So was this the same line of work though that
Yes.
you were doing? Okay, so the very same job that you were doing in the
Yes.
beginning, almost like destroying you mentally and physically,
Yes.
became your greatest gift by you
Yes.
just changing your relationship to your thoughts and your emotions,
Yes.
and then the redefinition of the word work.
Yeah.
That's quite something. I mean, this is the essence, everyone, with this example that Anna is showing. Yes, it takes time, but as Anna was saying and proving, it's been worth it. The 2-3 years that it has taken her to walk this process. But I mean, going from just a worker to now being a more active and prominent part of her working environment and all the people involved. And Anna, if I'm not mistaken, you're also reaching out more into the community, different groups of people.
Yes.
Expanding your working environment, not only to your work, but also more socially, community-wise, globally-wise.
Yes, absolutely. And I had some interesting experiences with colleagues as well, because that then became another dimension, is the relationships, the office relationships, and for example, and where I remember I had one colleague that no one liked this man, and I was, and it's actually the exact same as we just discussed with work, in how I had this metal helmet on, in how I saw him, of judgment and, oh, this guy. And then I decided to walk the same process of saying, no, I will not accept that I'm seeing this person in this way. And so I started opening up, and just when he came, for example, just let go of those thoughts of judgment and dislike, and started seeing, okay, but who is this individual otherwise? I don't even know them. And then this amazing individual opened up, or not opened up, but I started seeing more of who they were. And I started realizing, for example, that they were being misunderstood, that they were actually very pure and honest in their expression, and that people were misunderstanding them. And there was like, that was also a very significant moment of realizing how much I'm missing out on by staying in these limited views of other people and, who I am in relationship to them. So that then started opening up a whole process of opening myself up to opportunities and not allowing myself to have these limited views on people, on communities. I'm not sure. I don't think this is what you meant.
This is also a cool point, though. No, meaning that the dimension that we can take from this, though, is that with you supporting, opening up yourself, you getting to know your potential, you just changing your relationship with yourself, your environment, the people in it, the work. It does then also allow for you to open up your eyes to seeing more potential out there. And that's including within people. Like, it's interesting. I also, so many times of people asking me, where can I find inspiration? Or, where can I find something more, something different, just, depth. And then I ask them one thing, where does that exist inside yourself? Have you found that in you? are you living that within yourself and your life? And then they would be going, no, what do you mean? So then I would ask the question, but how can you see it out there if you cannot even see it within yourself? So we oftentimes think really that what we see or the solutions that we'll find is out there, but we so often miss that what we see out there is coming from within here. Like our eyes, our physical eyes, our inner eyes is seeing from within us. So, you know, it is also very simplistically like placing two people, like Anna, let's just take you even, for example, your past self in relation to work and your current self in relation to work, placing those two selves in the same environment of work, your past self will see no potential.
Yes.
We'll see no enjoyment, we'll see no expansion, we'll see
I'm
no
not even
expression.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas your new self will just look at everything and go, okay, right, I've got this idea, let's do this, let's do that. I think this could be changed. How about we get these people together here?
Yeah.
So it's all about ourselves.
Yes.
And
Really.
yeah,
You know what I did, a practical tool that may be useful for others as well, is when I started walking that process, I made a commitment to take a photo every day and put on Instagram, and to look, deliberately, actively look for inspiration or insight in my world. So in my case, it's related to education, and I focused on that, but also just like life insight. And so that would do, and it was like a fun game that I created with myself, and it actually made me there already in the beginning, where I still had that difficult relationship with work. It actually made it more fun, because now I was going out into the world exploring and actively looking for life, you could say. So that actually helped me a lot. And so as I did that, I started developing eyes or I started developing sight in terms of actively seeing. And now it's become such an integrated part of me that it just happens naturally, that I'm naturally curious. It started with photos and images and seeing, you know, it can be anything, nature or train tracks or people, but in actively looking for what's more in this. You know, I took a photo once of a milk truck, where there was cows and a lovely field on it, and that made me reflect over advertisements and how, you know, for example, like that. So you can start like going in so deeper and seeing that there's deeper layers to everything.
Yes.
So that really supported me.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, because I was also just looking at, I mean, changing from old patterns of your definition and experience of work into new, more creative, potential, expansive and expressive ones. We may just have a look, Anna, at next time, because I'm sure, I know this is more just a general sharing of your experience of defining, redefining, and living the word work. To just have a look at sharing also here on another hangout in time to come, the more specific processes, you know, like giving more specific examples of, okay, what was really involved in the redefining process? When those thoughts came up and those emotions came up, how did you release it? How did you change from those, like those negative or bad experiences to something more stable and grounded that led you into this person that you've become today, that, you know, who now sees potential expansion, change everywhere? So I think, Anna, if you'd be available in our hangouts to come, then we share with the audience really just some nice practical ways that assisted and supported you that they can test out, or, you know, from the examples that you've given, they may come up with ideas that works for them. But just to take all this sharing and make it more practical, livable for everyone to learn from. Right, but I'm sure we have got quite the audience intrigued in, just realizing this one point, because so many of us want to try and give up on our jobs or the work that we do, and we don't realize that if we just let go of our thoughts and our emotions toward it, that it could even be our purpose or our potential.
Yes.
That is kind of the tendency of us humans, is to sabotage and compromise that which would actually be our greatest gift.
Yes.
Fortunately. I'm sure you've also thought about this, Anna, like sometimes when you look back, like, oh my goodness, if I had given up on this job.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's crazy to look at how, because it's like that for most people, unless you're very lucky that you just happen to land exactly where your best potential can come to manifestation, or you can live that. But for most people,
far and few between.
Really. And for the rest of it, it's something that we have to create. And that's also what I started realizing, is that I have to create opportunities for myself. So I eventually was able to change this job. There wasn't anything wrong with it, but it was not where I wanted to be. And I did that through, exactly as I said before, being open to opportunities. And when opportunities came my way, even if I couldn't yet see what it could lead to, say, yes, I will go with you to that dinner, or yes, I will become friends with that person in Facebook, because you never know what can develop from it, which eventually resulted in the job that I have today, which I am very thankful for, which is exactly where I want to be. So I think that's really cool. That's really cool, like an outcome or a result of this process. And I'm sure that more dimensions will open up as I keep, living my life. Sure. But in terms of just that process, coming to a point where you can actually create opportunities for yourself.
Yeah, because you were creating yourself.
Yes.
Within creating the definition of the word, and it opened many doors inside yourself and your life. Yes. All right. So Anna, any last words or sharings that you'd like to point out for the audience for this hangout?
No, I will say that maybe if anyone has any questions that we could then take up in the next time, you could send them to this or put them in the YouTube comments of this video, because then we can take them up next time. Yes,
I think that'd be great. So Anna and I will be here again for a hangout in time to come, because I think it would be really great. And because I know with everything that we've shared, when you're listening, you do sometimes get some ideas, and you have a general concept or understanding. But I think if we walk us through more practically, like the whole process, give some ideas, suggestions, get the audience going a bit more with some questions as we continue, that'll also be fantastic, and assisting and supporting as many as possible with this gift that Anna also realized, because I wouldn't have wanted that for me in the sense of, having given up on a job or a work environment when all I had to do was just redefine myself within it, and that that job or that work could have actually been my purpose.
Yes.
And I wouldn't. So let's assist and support as many as possible in this process of redefining and living the word work. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining, Anna. And Anna, you also mentioned the word fun in work, and this is the very word we're also redefining in the soul videos. So also walking the redefining and living of the word fun. You can also check out the soul videos we're doing weekly as well. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for listening and joining, Anna as well. And looking forward to our next hangout.
Bye.
Bye-bye.